on this episode of Insight, the unique world of triplets. Kelly, when you were 21, you had an accident. What happened?
I was pretty adventurous at 21 and I decided I wanted to get my skydiving licence. Unfortunately, my first jump didn't go to plan. I had a bit of an accident, fracturing my spine. I obviously couldn't feel my legs. I crushed my 80% of my spinal column.
Christine and Jackie, you are Kelly's identical triplet sisters. Christine, what do you remember about that accident?
I was there at the time and I remember having to travel in the ambulance and I was sitting at the front and couldn't feel my legs, they went numb. And then when she had her surgery where they put in the plates and pins, I was at work at the time and I just remember standing there and just getting really dizzy and just didn't feel right.
So you were experiencing exactly what Kelly was experiencing.
Yep.
Jackie, you weren't there that day. How did you find out about Kelly's accident?
Got a phone call from my mother, who Christine was lucky enough to have to call, and all she said to me was, "Don't go anywhere, don't do anything, bad luck happens in threes."
Really?
I had recurring dreams for a couple of weeks beforehand that something was going to happen to Kelly, but in my dream she died.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Christine, what was it like growing up as a triplet?
We didn't know any different, but we were dressed alike. We went to school together in the same class for the first years of schooling.
Our first day of school.
Our first day of school.
Felt
we
sorry
had
for everybody
the
else.
cameraman there from Channel 9 News filming it. It was in the local paper.
The triplet van would
The
turn
triplet
up.
van. It was a bit of a
Circus.
circus.
And what about the teachers? How did they treat you?
We used to get compared, but we would swap classes as well. So we did that right up probably to year 7.
That was mostly encouraged.
It wasn't
by the
always our
teachers.
doing. As we got older, the teachers would encourage us.
And then the teachers that would just lump you as one.
Jackie, did you have to share things with your sisters?
We had to do the same activities, whether you wanted to or not, because Mum could only drop off at one place and pick up from one place. So if one wanted to do calisthenics, we all did calisthenics. One did Girl Guides, we all had to do Girl Guides. Whether you liked it or not, that was just how it was.
And what about birthdays, Christine? What were they like?
I think it was our 3rd birthday. I remember a cake that's actually iced in thirds.
Oh, really? Different colours?
We
Just with our
different
names in
cakes.
each third. And then as we got older, we'd have a big party with the 3 of us, but
And
you'd
3
have,
cakes.
you know, X amount of people we'd invite. It was sort of like your own party, but you still had to share the party.
It was big.
Kelly, did looking alike affect how others treated you?
You were expected to be the same. You were compared with each other, so it might be, well, Christine did better in this, or why didn't you do as well? Or in school, teachers would say, oh, you know, we copied each other because we may have had similar thought
wrote
patterns.
very similar stuff to say in English.
Wow. So you were around before AI was?
Yeah, oh gosh.
Christine, how did it feel being compared?
It was horrible. It really was, because we're different people still.
Did that change how much you wanted to be an individual?
Oh, God, yes. It was frustrating. Like, when it came to getting awards at school, they'd get the academic awards, and I'd be like, well, I'm just as smart as them, but I had to compete against those two. But it really made you try harder to be yourself. So one of the best things that happened was Mum stopped dressing us alike, so we could explore our own taste. As soon as I was old enough to, I'd dye my hair every colour under the sun, so there was no mistaking I was not them.
Oscar, you're here with your identical triplet brothers, Francis and Conrad. You're 17. Do you have the same group of friends?
We actually do. So at school we hang out in the same friendship group. I guess Francis really, he started making like brunch. He branched out first, and I always used to think, oh damn, how does Francis get all these friends? Because usually they would kind of hook the friends, and then I would become friends with their friends, I guess. But I guess as time goes on, we make more like kind of separate friends.
Yeah, more individual friends, separate, but we all
go back to the same group.
Francis, do you share new friendships with your brothers or do you hang on to them?
There was a time where I would definitely want that friendship to myself. Like, I want it to be my friend and like, oh, Francis' friend, not our friend. It's only till like probably the last 3 years where I've just been hanging out with a friend and me, like together and not my brothers. At first, there was like, I was like, oh, brothers, surely you come to this hangout? And they're like, no, Francis, you wanted to do it by yourself. And I was like, all right. But,
Yeah, because we were all used to hanging out with people, all three of us together. So if we weren't talking to anyone, we could talk between ourselves. So it was easier to mingle.
and also like if my social battery's low, I'd be like, oh, Francis and Connor, you guys do the talking, I'll just be here.
You have a band together called Birdland. Let's have a look. You've got some good fans there. Oscar, does being a triplet influence the way you create music together?
Oh, for sure. It's usually collaborative, but like we fight all the time and we have very different music tastes. So like,
Not really that different.
Well, not fully different. Well, I mean, like sometimes Connor puts on stuff and I'm like, what the hell are you listening to? And that influences how we work together, because if we want something in the song to go a certain way, someone would disagree, and we are very stubborn. Yeah, we all have set ideas and not want to budge. Yeah. But also, it's very convenient to be triplets and play music together because we rehearse whenever we want. We do like TikToks and Instagram stuff, so we can record a video whenever we want. It's so convenient, and because we're triplets, we can just tell the truth to each other. So if we don't like something, we'll just be like, oh, that sucks. And yeah, I'm not saying I don't get offended or anything, but I guess we always try and find like middle ground, like for things.
Because also we have like a connection, like because we've lived together our whole lives, we're able to communicate. We can give each other looks and we know what to play or where we are in a song.
Yeah, we really get into each other's groove when we're playing music, so we really sit into the beat. We get better at cueing with each other. I mean, that also comes with just playing music with the same people over and over again, but yeah.
Michelle and Justin, you're Conrad, Francis and Oscar's parents. What was it like once the news sunk in that you were expecting 3 babies?
Well, it was a huge, huge shock. So it took a really long time for that to set in, to be honest.
And I think when we found out Michelle had brought in this picture with these 3 little circles on it, and she said, look, this is 1, and then she pointed to 2, and as soon as she pointed to 2, I looked at the 3rd one, I just thought, what's that? I thought it was like the scan where you had the head and the belly and the knee or something. And then I just remember I stripped down to my underpants and stood in front of the air conditioner because I thought I was going to pass out.
Yeah, thankfully my mum was at hand.
But I remember going to bed that night and just thinking, this won't happen. And that's the thought. That's the thought that kind of calmed you at that moment. But then the next morning, you wake up and it's like, what do we have to do to make sure this works perfectly? And all the links you've got to do. And you spend all that time being paranoid about everything that happens, and obviously continues on to their 17, 18. And apparently, according to my parents, when they're 52, you still get nervous about your kids and everything.
Philomena, you're also a mother of triplets. How did you react when you first heard that you were expecting 3 at once?
Yes, obviously it was very shocking because I felt pregnant. I went to do my first ultrasound thinking it was 1 baby, and then it was a lady doing the scan. And then she was like, oh my God, she started like, oh my God, you have twins. And then I was very excited. After screaming and everything, like a minute later, she was like, oh no, it's actually 3. I'm like, what? And then I was quiet and she said, yeah, it's 3. I didn't believe it. I was like, you said it was 2 a minute ago and now you're saying it's 3. And at the back of my head, I was like, don't end up saying it's 1 because I love twins. But yeah, it just ended up being 3 also.
You'd been in Australia for 2 years at that point.
Yeah.
How did your family in Ghana react to the news?
I actually did not tell them straight away because I couldn't believe that it's true that I'm having 3. So I kind of hide that from them a little bit. even though they knew I was pregnant, but I didn't tell them that I was having triplet until I actually saw 3 babies on the bed, like when they were born. That's where I was like, yeah, I told them. And of course, they were very happy, very surprised. Everyone was shocked. How did you carry 3? Like, so many questions, so many hows, yeah.
Your kids, Shane, Chanel and Shanette, were born 9 years ago. How did you come up with their names?
Oh, their names. Okay, so I've always loved the name Shane, so I've had that name Shane like somewhere in my mind that in the future when I have a baby boy, I will name him Shane. So when it happened that I'm having 3, I somehow drive Shanette Chanel from Shane. So when you look at the spellings, it's Shane and Shanette is spelled Shanette. And then Chanel is Shanelle. So it's just somehow the same. And I've loved it. I wanted to do the rhyme names, so I just did it that way, yeah.
Chanel and Shanette, you're identical. Do people confuse you with one another?
Yeah, one time in year 2 and year 1, we switched classes.
Did you? For how long?
How long was it again? 30 minutes. I think it was 30 minutes.
Oh, okay, so not too long, not too long. And Shane, what's it like being the only boy? Hard. What about your sisters? Do they want to play with you?
No.
Okay. And why do you not want to play with your brother?
He's boring.
Do you like being triplets?
Yes, but no.
What's the yes part?
It's like if you don't have anyone to play with, you can play with them. But then the no bit is, for example, you say they can't come into your room. You go downstairs to get something, the next thing you know, they're in your room.
Well, you guys have been great to have in the studio. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to see you at the end of the show, so we'll take you out of the studio now. Mafanwi, you're a mother of 4, including triplets. Here's what your daily life looks like.
Hello. In truth, nothing can prepare you for going from a family of like 3 to 6 in 3 minutes. It's out of this world. It's really overstimulating and you have to have eyes in the back of your head and you can't really describe it to someone that's never been in that level of chaos. And then Dad comes home. We have 3 fridges. Nappy stocks, we never want this to drop and I don't want to drop below this level of milk. Do you want to wear these shoes? Taking the triplets out is wild, but I have learned to just go. You've got to get out that door and you've got to have an adventure because they're just 3 little minds that just need to be expanded. Here's the swing. Hi, swing. And they're also keeping me to task because I need to get out the door to be not isolated as a mother and to connect with people. 1 for Ivy, 1 for Violet, 1 for Ophelia. But there are lots of looks, lots of heads that turn, lots of questions. Someone might say to me, oh, you chose this, or you can handle this. Okay, in the wagon. And of course, I chose to have another child, but I had no idea that there was going to be 2 others in there. Bye, coffee shop. Bye. Say thank you.
Mafanwi, your son is 8 and the triplets are 2. Do you and your husband have extra support at home?
No. So as you saw, we live in a 2.5 bedroom apartment that we rent. It's up a couple of flights of stairs. I have to live in the city because it's for my husband's work. I manage work myself part-time. We don't have support. We have no family around. It's really difficult. And if I could get access to childcare, it would change the world. Every day is just like go, go, go. It's just full of 3 bottles and dress the children, then they've undressed themselves and now we have to like clean up a mess over here. It's wonderful and I'm a glass half full kind of person. I see the magic in it, but it is really overwhelming and taxing and I'm not supported. It's basically a military operation every day. I just don't have an army.
Do you get financial support from the government?
When the children were born, they were born in June of 2023. I received paid parental leave, or PPL, for the equivalent of 18 weeks. And then also, I'm also eligible for like childcare subsidy. But for the paid parental leave, they actually class that by birth. That 18 weeks was for my 3 children. And sometimes I think sit in my house and go, my sister's had 3 children and she has received 3 lots of paid parental leave. And the government has acknowledged that that has been increased every year. And I think next year, as of the middle of the year, it's going to go up to 26 weeks of paid leave to support mothers in that postpartum period in their life. And I had 18 weeks divided by 3, 6 weeks recovery and paid leave for each of those children.
Have you changed as a person since the girls arrived?
I sometimes am overwhelmed by panic. Like, I've presented to my GP and said, please send me for an ultrasound because I have brain fog, I've got chest pains, I'm so stressed. And it's actually panic, like I'm overwhelmed. And it would be entirely a different experience if I was given more support, like early access to affordable, accessible childcare would allow me to restore my batteries.
Do you feel like that panic too is very specific to triplets?
I think I roll with the circus of this wonderful, magical children, but I'm very aware of how overstimulating it is, all of the sounds and the clicks and the Lego being smashed on the floor in one moment and then back to a door slamming and then someone's pulling hair. It is really taxing and overstimulating, and I think the panic comes from sleep deprivation, the fact that I've never been able to fully recover from the pregnancy, and it's just myself and my husband's back to work. It's the children's first.
Your son was 6 when the triplets were born. Do you still manage to give him one-on-one time?
One of the things I was chatting about with my husband recently, I said, we always used to read George a bedtime story. And now that's kind of lost. I mourn his childhood. He's had to grow up and become a helper to me. Recently, my husband was away and I put George to bed and he said, Mum, can I tell you one more thing? And I was a bit like, George, come on, we've been doing this for half an hour. We have this like little chitter-chatter time together, so it's just us. And he said, I just wanted to say that I know you're down a set of hands, so if you need me in the night, wake me up so I can help you with the girls.
Oh.
And he's 8 and he's got grade 2 tomorrow. I'm so proud of him, but I'm sure, like everything, it has positive and negative.
Tom, you have identical triplet sisters. They're 8 years older than you. How did they welcome you to the family?
Well, they were born in 1969, and so this was sort of before IVF, so sort of totally natural birth. And actually my mum, because there was no scans back then, she only found out 2 months before she gave birth. She was quite big, but not massive, and she was feeling her belly, and she felt like a foot, and then another foot, and then a third foot. And so she sort of worked it out herself. And then I came along 8 years later, and I was basically treated for the first couple of years of my life like a very realistic baby doll. That if you dropped it on the floor, which I think happened a few times, it actually cried. So they were absolutely delighted. And in fact, I think they kind of wanted 3 of me so they could have 1 each.
As you got older, did that same dynamic stay?
Well, it was odd because I think by the time that I started to, have my own views and kind of was able to speak, I mean, when I was 8, they were 16. So we had a load of different interests, and I think that I always felt that there was a kind of, separation, really. I looked at them like a bit of a sort of impenetrable unit, in a way, and or kind of members of a club that I certainly didn't have membership to. So they were off doing their own thing, and I felt a bit like an only child, really. We just didn't have that connection.
During your school years, did that change?
No, if anything, it just grew. And I think that it was very difficult to get to know them. And I never really, back then, understood why that was the case. We just seemed to live sort of separate lives. And they were a little bit like, we lived in the same house, but actually they kind of had the room right at the top of the house. It sounds a bit sort of, Victorian kind of literature, but they were up in the top and they didn't really kind of involve themselves in my life particularly. So, I'd sort of see them wander past and catch glimpses of them, but never really was able to break in to form a kind of proper relationship. So they always felt a bit like ghosts in a way.
On your team?
Yep. I never felt like our family was normal. And I will even say to this day, I'm like, why can't our family just be normal?
You hated everyone.
We all
hated each other at some point. I still hate
Who's go?
Your turn.
Mum always said having the triplets was being punished and blessed in one fell swoop.
Right. How can I not forget that?
You still got that dent above your eye.
Yeah, thank you. I have the scar.
It was you.
It's always me.
It's always you. My name is Gillian. I am the eldest in my family and my siblings are triplets. As a parent myself now, I can see how hard it would have been.
To wrangle all of us.
Yeah. I remember clearly, like Mum said she was having a baby. I always felt like it was me and them. And I was the oldest sister of the triplets. It was a responsibility I probably didn't want to have, but I had to. So I didn't find out until, closer to when you were born that, it was not just one baby, it was 3. I remember being shocked and excited because I actually wanted a brother or a sister. I didn't know if it was a boy or 2 girls either, nothing. I felt resentment towards my siblings at times because I just wanted to have one sibling. I wanted to be like my friends. I wanted to be able to just go on a holiday normally with my family, to not have to go, right, we need to times everything by 3. When you were born, the reality was I wasn't going to get attention anymore, and life was going to be very different. I declared that I would only ever want 2 children, no more. I never wanted to be outnumbered, but I learnt that my siblings are obviously meant to be here, and they are here for a reason and have taught me so much.
Tom, you're the younger brother of identical triplet sisters. Have you ever resented their connection?
I don't resent the fact that they're very close, because I think it's really nice for them to have that. But my parents separated when I was 16, and it was a pretty difficult domestic environment to grow up in. And so I think that really what happened, I started to feel a bit kind of abandoned by them, I suppose, or kind of left alone to deal with the difficult situation at home. And so I suppose actually that's where, at the time, I felt quite resentful, because I felt my dad was quite an erratic character, to say the least, and I felt like I was left alone to sort of deal with him and the situations that he created.
Did you ever talk about your sisters with other people?
As I grew up, that relationship it didn't really exist. So actually, when people said, "Do you have family? Do you have?" I often found it at the time easier just to say no, because it was just too difficult to get into. Because I think as soon as you say you've got identical triplet sisters, there are no doubt a load of questions that follow that, and because I didn't feel connected to them, I didn't really feel like I wanted to answer those questions. So often, I think I would just sort of, deny having sisters, if it was at a party and people were sort of trying to get to know me.
You're a writer, and in 2014, you interviewed your sisters for an article. What was the story about?
I felt the loss of having these sisters that I kind of wanted a relationship with, but didn't really know how to have a relationship with them or how to get into that circle that they were in. And so I suppose it was really a way of kind of addressing that to some extent. But I think also I was really quite fascinated by their lives. And, someone said earlier about them being able to swap over at school. So, my sisters are called Emma, Kate and Victoria, so Emma hated maths, so she just stopped going. And Kate would go in her place. And, you know, the teachers heard rumours that this was going on, and they told me later that the head teacher had said to Kate, "I know what you're doing, Kate, you've been taking maths." But he was actually talking to Emma at the time. So they had it sort of sewn up. And, you know, the kind of stories that came up, I remember that they did everything together. And they even got their first kind of Saturday jobs together. And they worked in a restaurant. And Kate would come in and bring someone the food. And then she'd go back into the kitchen. And the customer would turn round and see Emma. And then he'd look over and Emma would disappear and Victoria would be there. And he thought that this was an incredibly efficient waitress. So I was really interested in their lives and sort of wanted to be part of it. And I suppose that as a writer, that was a kind of way of bridging that gap.
Alicia, you're an identical triplet. We sometimes hear that three's a crowd. What was your experience?
I definitely experienced that. I was the third wheel, so I was left out a lot as a kid. I don't know if it was because I'm quite introverted and shy, and they're a little bit more extroverted. They tended to go off and leave me alone. So,
what was your childhood like?
Challenging for many reasons, not only to do with being an identical triplet. The identical triplet part of it was the expectation of being the same and being a freak show whenever you went out anywhere. So everyone, as you can see, we were dressed the same, always had the same hairstyle, same shoes, same socks, same underwear. I'm not even kidding. We would go out in public and you would just see everybody turn and stare. You would get whispered, pointed at. There was gossip going around school about us all the time. I remember one of my earliest memories is strangers, we'd be at the shop and strangers would just come up into our face and be like, "Oh my gosh, you all look the same. Are you twins?"
Did that constant attention affect you?
Absolutely, 100%. I don't want to speak for my sisters, but for me, it reached a point when we were about 11 or 12 where just wanting to be different, just felt that urge of, I don't want to look like them anymore, I don't want to be the same as them. And I started pushing a bit more to be a bit more of an individual. So yeah, started dressing differently, doing my hair differently. I didn't wear makeup, my sisters did. I purposely chose not to wear makeup so that I wouldn't look like them. And it impacted our relationship as well because you didn't want to go out in public with them because you knew it was going to happen. You knew people would stare, come up to you, say stupid things, and then, yeah, so we kind of started separating and not wanting to be together as much.
What's your relationship like with your triplets now?
It's close but complicated. So I love my sisters and I assume they love me. We talk quite regularly. We were texting today. We're seeing each other on the weekend. It's just comes back to that situation of when we catch up, we know what's going to happen. There's going to be at least one person who comes up and says, "Are you twins?" And it just made life a bit complicated for us. And our family didn't really help in that situation either, I think. So, yeah, we're close, but it's a complicated relationship.
Alex, what was it like growing up as a triplet for you?
So it was pretty good. I'm an identical twin, and then Sam as well. But
we're not identical, clearly.
Glad we clarified that one.
Yeah, thank you. But I think the key difference is it's quite funny because we're identical, but I have cerebral palsy and my twin sister doesn't. And so sometimes people would get us mixed up for each other. And obviously I think I had a different experience growing up than she did because like she played sport and did all kinds of things We grew up in a really small country town, so I feel like we were each other's friends. We were in each other's classes. Our year advisor in like high school would read our roll as Hudson 1, 2, 3. Like, I think we had sort of sometimes separate friends, but by and large, we were together a lot.
Sam, you're Alex's triplet brother. Tell us about your family.
Growing up, my mum was a nurse, dad was a high school teacher. They had a 3-year-old daughter, Rebecca, my older sister. They thought, oh, we'll have one more child, and then, surprise, got 3 more, so we all came along. Life was pretty cool because you always had your 2 sidekicks growing up, so those earlier years was a dream, really. You know, it was pretty cool growing up with them.
You were born 4 minutes apart.
Yeah, 4 minutes apart, so the 2 girls first, gentlemen, ladies first. Had the quietest 4 minutes of my life, chilling in the womb while my womb buddies were out in the real world. And, yeah, I like to play that one a little bit. So,
yeah, it's a good one.
So that's
nice.
that was good.
Alex, are you similar to your identical twin, Kirsten?
I feel like at our core we're the same, but because of like me growing up disabled and her not, I feel like it made us be more individual. And like very early on we were very different. Like she was more of a kind of tomboy and I always wanted to wear dresses. So I feel like we present ourselves differently, but kind of in our core we're the same. We even repeat each, like, you know, when I talk on the phone to her, it's like I'm talking to myself.
Yeah, wow. You're a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
Here's you in action.
So a little bit about me. I was born sandwiched between my brother and my sister. So each year on our birthday, I call them and thank them for the brain damage. Yeah, you can laugh. Only one of them is here. Yeah, so that would make me a criplet.
You're welcome.
Alex, you describe yourself in your show as a criplet.
Yeah.
How does that go down?
People are a bit scared. For me, that speaks more to like my identity as being disabled, because like a lot of people feel quite uncomfortable about it, and like us cripples, we love that stuff. Like a lot of our life is kind of uncomfortable, so it's like if I can make non-disabled people feel a little bit uncomfortable. But with that, I was like, what's the quickest way that I can describe how I grew up? And it's like cripple, triplet, done. Triplet.
You and your twin sister, I think sometimes people would confuse you.
Yeah.
Have you ever used that to your advantage?
Yeah, so when we were about 3 years old, we went over to America to visit my dad's family. And there was a kid, he was like a family friend, he was a little bit younger than us. And he loved to push me over because I fell really easily. And then one time, like, he kept pushing me and he didn't realise that he was pushing my sister. And so she pushed him back really hard and he fell over. So that's always been good for me. Like,
Sam, do you remember that?
I do remember that one. We knew she was a bit different, but we always included her in a lot of stuff and growing up and adventures with the neighbourhood kids and all that. But as we got older, obviously, we wanted to get into sports and do all that as well. So it was always a bit hard with that Alex couldn't participate, so it was usually Kirsten and myself. There was a little bit where she got to do, there was a great program called Riding for Disabled. So where if you're a disabled kid, you got to go ride horses. So she got to thrive in that environment. And that was the first time we got to sit back and watch her, which at the time I was probably like, it's unfair that I didn't get to ride a horse. But it was really cool that she could have that thing. And then we grew up where she was like our biggest cheerleader coming to sports. She had no real choice in the matter, but she got dragged along to like all the weekend soccer games and the volleyball and all that sort of stuff.
What was that like, Alex, watching on as your siblings played sport?
So boring. I sometimes got annoyed because I felt like if it were me, I'd be like way more competitive. I'd be like, no, go harder. Because our twins, like, she's way more reserved. So I'd sometimes watch her and be like, can you just try a bit harder? Like, yeah.
Sam, you were born in Urannah, New South Wales,
Yep.
a town just of a few hundred people.
Yep.
How did the community receive the arrival of triplets?
I dare say it was front page news when it happened. Pretty much all your schooling career, there was oh, first day of primary school, here's the triplets, you know. So it was probably like a unique thing. And the community at that time really got involved. Mum being a nurse, Dad being a teacher. So they were, you know, solid parts of the community. So I think a lot of people helped out, plus the novelty of triplets.
Yeah.
That was only until we were 5, and then we moved to another country town, much bigger, of 4,000 people. And in the little block we grew up, we had like the Baileys next door, the Trangmars, and there's about 10 kids all the same age. And so when the parents were all in their careers, all of us kids kind of got to hang out, adventure together.
Yeah.
You know, just all these like really cool things when we were little. So
Yeah.
just being in a good little town with kids the same age,
Yeah.
we all kind of were able to be raised together.
Yeah.
And then in that primary school, there was probably maybe 40 people in the year, but there was 3 sets of twins as well. So, you know, shout out to all the multiples out there. We're all cool. Triplets one up those twins though, which is cool.
Well, I'm both, so.
Yeah.
Leonie, you have 5-year-old triplets. Did you receive much support when they were babies?
Yeah, my mum lived around the corner, so she was a 3-minute drive, so she spent a lot of time, still does, with us. And I also hired a nanny. So the day the girls came home, we had a nanny from day one.
How does the nanny help you?
So nanny would do bath time, put a load of washing on, put the clothes away, heat up the dinner, all the mundane things. Yeah, that was their first birthday photo. Could not get a good shot, but I love that photo. So the nanny would do all the stuff that would take time away from the kids, which meant that Pete and I could hang out with them, cuddle them, play with them, and not have to be slaving away cooking dinner.
Triplet pregnancies are high risk.
Yeah.
How did you manage yours?
It was the most difficult thing I've been through. It was very challenging. I actually had a seizure 32 plus 6 days. I was in the hospital due to have a caesarean the following day. Checked in at 5 p.m. and I had a seizure at 9 p.m. They rushed us down to emergency delivery. So the girls were out within 20 minutes of me seizing. They all came out within a minute. It was probably just arms and legs, grab. And then I ended up in a coma.
Wow, you say that with such casualness.
Yeah.
But that's insane.
I've done a lot of work around that.
Yes. So what was that seizure caused by, do you know?
Eclampsia. Yeah.
When did you first meet your girls?
I was in a coma for about 16 hours and then it was on day 2. So Pete tried really hard to get me to see the girls as quickly as possible. So it was in the afternoon, around lunchtime on day 2. I had a lot of drugs in my system, so I don't remember a lot of it. So thankfully we've got some videos and photos. So I was in the intensive care when I woke up. I had breathing apparatus on and I was being monitored by the cardiac team because my heart had actually enlarged during the whole process of having a seizure.
And then you're also having to recover from a C-section.
Yeah. That took about 6 weeks. I was in hospital for 2 and the girls were in for 5.
Philomena, what was it like when you took your triplets home?
It was very difficult for us because at that time I was new in Australia, I didn't have any family. So I remember when we got home, it was just me and my husband and 3 children. And at that same time, he actually had to go for work in the afternoon too. So it was really hard, but then at some point I got some church members and friends walking in here and there to support, but it was hard, yeah.
When your children were 18 months old, your husband became ill. What happened?
Yeah, so we were there. Life was already hard with just the 2 of us and the 3 kids. We were living in our 2 small bedroom apartments, trying to manage through. And then all of a sudden he fell sick, just like a normal sickness. He got flu, that's what we all knew at that time. So we did not even take it serious, so just taking Panadol and other things. Then he started getting fever, so on one afternoon, like one morning, he woke up and went to see his GP because at the night he was getting a hot temperature. Yeah, so he went to see the GP, came back home like an hour later, and I was like, oh, you've come early, what was the problem? And He said, oh, it's okay, it's just flu. They gave me cough syrup and Nurofen Plus to take. And that same afternoon, he just started to get more hot, so I have to call the ambulance. He went to the hospital, and unfortunately, he passed away a day after. By heart attack, yeah.
I'm so sorry, Philomena. How did you manage with 3 babies on your own?
That was more harder. When he was there, it was hard. Then when he went home, it was more harder. But yeah, forever grateful to my church members at that time who stood in, because we didn't have anything, like nothing, as at the time he left. So the friends, church members supported us every single step until it got to a time that we could do things on our own. And thank God, I've also met like a new partner who is also helping. So it's good. Things are better now, I would say. Things are good. Yeah.
Alex and Sam, you all live in different places, including your other triplet, Kirsten, who's in the US. Sam, do you miss the old days together?
Yeah, of course. The childhood 3 amigos, absolutely. Yeah.
Alex, would you like to live closer to your siblings?
Yes, but also I'm like happy because Kirsten, she's found her life in America and found the things that make her happy. So like the part of me that would wish we all lived together is like less than the part of me that's like, oh, well, we've each found our place. So that's cool. And we visit a lot.
Your sister Kirsten didn't want to miss out, so she sent you both this message.
Hey, Ali and Sam, I love you and I miss you heaps. I wish I could be there with you. Al, do you remember the time when we were 17 and I was driving as you, with you, and got pulled over for an RBT? Sorry, Mum and Dad.
Alex, do you remember that?
Maybe. Plead the fifth.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
What's it like seeing her there?
Yeah, it's great.
Cool.
And like this day and age, you know, technology is so good. So, you know, siblings around the world.
We have a triplet group chat, but also like a family group chat. So it's like we're across each other's stuff a lot.
Sometimes we let our older sister in, but sometimes not as well, you know. So she hasn't broken the triangle. Sometimes a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll let her in a bit more now. So I feel a bit bad.
Christine and Jackie, your identical triplet Kelly, lives in another state from you both. Has that distance affected your bond?
I don't think so.
It just means there's one of us down here, not two. When she comes down to visit, it makes it very interesting because people go, oh, I saw you running the other day. I didn't know you were a runner. And I'm like, no, that's my sister. She's down from the Territory. So you don't get as much of the triplet association until you're all in the one place.
Christine, does it mean that you're closer with one triplet than the other?
No. I mean, your whole life, it changes and varies around anyway with which one you're closer to at the time. So it doesn't change it.
Alicia, you're an identical triplet. You said you resented being seen as one unit when you were growing up. Did that change?
No, I still resent it. I still dislike being referred to as a collective noun, the triplets. Hate that. My sisters hate it as well. It took me a very long time to develop a sense of who I am when I'm not the triplets. I was well into my 20s before I figured out who I was when I wasn't these other 3 people as one. And, you know, for instance, we had many times as children where we would have a friend come up to us and say, my mum said I'm allowed to invite 10 people to my birthday party and I'm inviting all 3 of you because you only count as one.
Wow.
Yeah, and we would get one birthday present or one Christmas present, and because our birthday is in January, sometimes we would get one present for Christmas and birthday. So yes, resented it then, resent it still.
Tom, you grew up feeling like an only child despite having triplet sisters. You didn't see them much as adults, but you have since reconnected. Why?
As I got older and had my own family and had my own son, it kind of caused me to reflect on it in a different way, seeing my son grow up and understanding his perspective as a child. And we'd actually grown up with a very violent dad. And so we'd been in and out of refuges. And when you're a kid, you just get, that is what life is. So what I was able to do, I think, is kind of think about it in a different way. And I kind of understood more that they had kind of clung to each other because they gave each other comfort and they had each other. You know, and my father was a real misogynist and was, you know, very violent towards my mother in front of us all. But he was also very cruel to my sisters too. And actually, he kind of gave me a lot more affection, although he was still a kind of monster in many ways. And so I think they kind of looked at that and saw the love that he gave me. And even though it was a kind of contorted love, and that's all really a child wants, to be loved by their parents.
You went on to write a book about your childhood. How did your sisters respond to that?
So when I had that kind of revelation, really, I hadn't spoken to my sisters for a very long time. And I had to go to them and say, well, I've written a book about everything that happened to us. I went to see them to say that. I hadn't seen them for a few years. And actually the book really kind of helped them as much as it helped me, I think, in a way, because they were really able to sort of understand their own lives through it. And I think we both really understood each other's position. And so I think they thought that I had kind of sided with my dad. And actually, you know, it was a lot more complicated, my relationship with him. And when they understood that, it really kind of, we understood each other in a very different way.
Oscar, do you ever wonder what it would be like growing up without identical brothers?
Yeah, I do. I sometimes think about it, and I guess because I'm 100% of myself around those two. Like, I mean, obviously we have really close friends and friends where I feel really at home, but with Francis and Conrad, I feel like myself. And I just imagine, like, if I didn't have those people there to kind of hook friends, because I get to experience everything together. Like, if something's like, oh, what's this? I have these two to fall back on, and like as a shield sometimes. So I sometimes think about what life would be like going through life without having two people to experience it with who, yeah.
Conrad, do you think you might ever grow apart?
I hope not, because we're hoping to stay in the band for our careers. And so we'll always get to see each other, hopefully. I guess really only if they have really controlling girlfriends. I'm also worried that I'm scared that we might forget to see each other because we have to make no effort. We make no effort to see each other now because we live with each other. And I mean, frankly, by the end of living with each other, we get fed up with each other a lot. But I'm wondering when we move away from each other, like, would I just message you guys and be like, oh, I want to hang out? Like, that's weird.
Francis, what is your most distinguishing feature, would you say?
So we've always had this problem. I mean, there's identical triplets in the room where we look the same and we're always trying to differ from each other. And I got these earrings here probably 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And I was like, oh, no one's going to mix me up with my brothers. But, I mean, of course they go on. So I was always dressing in different clothes as well. So we'd all go up shopping, but I was always first on the racks, looking at all the clothes. And I felt like I found my style first. So, at first, that was what distinguished me from the brothers. In my eyes, I'm sure no one else saw it. But we all have developed with that, what we wear and how we present ourselves. Like, I also got like a taper at the back and fade at the sides. And, of course, the brothers saw, as they saw a real-life model of a haircut they could get. That looks great. So they did that as well. Oscar now has a mullet and Conrad still has a taper.
Kind of looks a bit like a mullet, but
If I ever wanted earrings, I don't think. I would not let the brothers get. I've tried to get earrings, but he won't let me.
He claimed it first. Christine, Jackie, and Kelly, in a sense, you weren't raised to be individual. How do you reflect on that now?
We're glad that at a certain age, Mum decided she wanted us to be ourselves, because it really did help as you got older, because those childhood years up until we were probably, 8 years old?
Yeah.
A bit older.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whilst you don't know any different, it really did make your life different. You didn't feel like yourself.
You look back and it is really fun to play games with people that when they first find out you're triplets, or to show your kids. And as you grow up, to try to guess who is who. We all look the same.
And sometimes we say, are you sure you didn't mix this up?
Mix us up.
And maybe I'm actually Kelly and Jackie. Like she probably would have every photo she took when we were little. And back then you had to send them away to get developed. She must have had to write down in every photo who was sitting where.
Thank you so much. That's all we have time for. Thank you for your company. But before we go, Jackie, Kelly and Christine, tomorrow is your birthday, so we have a surprise for each of you. Happy birthday. And they're all different.
I know. Thank you. Thank you.